Grateful alcoholic? Would you all join me in the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. The church does not allow smoking in this room or in the hallways. They do allow smoking in the coffee room. Your cooperation in this matter is vital in order for us to maintain this meeting hall. Please do not throw your cigarette butts outside in the children's playground area. I have identified myself as an alcoholic. Would the other alcoholics please raise their hands? I'm in the right place. In order that we may get to know you during the coffee break and after the meeting, with those who have less than 30 days on the program, please raise your hands. Welcome. If we have any out-of-town visitors, would you please identify yourself so we may get to know you? No one? Okay. This is a two-speaker meeting. We will have a coffee break before our second speaker. This Friday night meeting is dedicated to the fact that Alcoholics Anonymous is simply one drunk talking to another. It is customary in Southern California to have a portion of Chapter 5 from the Big Book read. I have asked Tom to read it.
I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Tom. Chapter 5, How It Works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from a grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we cannot. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and drugs, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic The chapter to the agnostic and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Thank you.
One thing we like to do at this meeting is recognize newcomers. Therefore, we give chips in the first year of sobriety. Is there anyone who has been clean and sober for their first 30 days and would like to take a chip? How about 60 days? 90 days? 6 months? All right. Woo!
My name is Thomas, alcoholic.
Hi, Thomas.
Just going to say what I said the last time. I stopped drinking once before, but I really didn't do it for myself. I did it because my friendships with other people was threatened, and it was miserable. The 8 months I stopped for was miserable. And one day it was really, really hot and sunny, and the temptation of a beer was too much for me. And after that beer, the thought came to me, well, I've done it now, and I went and got a bottle of bourbon, and it was like another 2 years before I came back in again. But this time I'm doing it for myself, and I'd like to thank Alcoholics Anonymous and all my friends in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm glad to get this. Thank you.
Oh gosh. Hi, my name's Curtis Aiken. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Oh boy, 6 months. This is actually 6 months and 3 weeks, but I've been busy. I've been in Portland. I've been all over. We've been filming a lot. I haven't had much time to work the program, but sure missed it. And for you newcomers, I tell you, I thought I was on the road to insanity before I came to this, and it's changed my whole life. I own my own business in the film business, and that's doubled, and I can't keep up with that, and so it puts more pressure on me. And I guess since I obsessed on drugs and alcohol, now I've been obsessed with work, and it's turning out to better my future and keep me out of trouble. Anyway, thank you very much, and boy, this means a lot. Thank you.
I'm Lauren. I'm an alcoholic. Wow. I'm so obsessed with saying the right thing right now. It's not even funny. I ended up here because during the time that I was hitting my bottom, I was doing the Adult Children of Alcoholics program, and sitting there drunk and half those things, you know, probably upsetting the people because I reminded them of their parents. You know, crying, and I cried so hard at this one meeting that this guy, I called him later, and he said, you know, you're the actress. And I don't think he knew I was an actress, you know. Oh God, it was such a bad time. And my mom had been on the program for, I guess, a year and a half when I started going to ACA. I was so spiritually dead. I really wanted to die. Oh my God, just the difference. I want to live. 6 months ago, if I could see myself here now, it's incredible. Somebody, well, first of all, it got under my skin, you know. Where along the way, realized that I was an alcoholic. And my mom's sponsor, 12-stepped me. And, you know, I did the 20 questions, and I knew, and I couldn't stop knowing, you know. And I remember at my first meeting, I said, I think I just might maybe sort of be somewhat of an alcoholic, I think. God, and people smiled, you know, and somebody said to me tonight how much I'd changed, and I freaked out, you know, because part of that was what I was. I realized what I was, and I'm so lucky that I can change, because this is an incredible program. Saved my life. Keep coming back if you're new, because you will change. It's worth living for. Thank you. Anyone else for 6 months? About 9 months. Okay. We also give a cake with a candle on it for each 365 days of continuous sobriety. And tonight we have 3 cakes. And the first one is for Lori, and Curtis will give it to her, and David will start the song. Take it away, David.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lori. Happy birthday to you. Keep coming back.
Hi, my name's Lori, and I'm an addict and an alcoholic.
Hi, Lori.
I have to calm down here. It feels good. It feels really good. I'd like to thank Curtis for giving me my cake. This program has a lot of gifts to offer, and he's a very special one. It didn't take me long when I got here to realize that this is where I was supposed to be, that I'd reached my destination, and it was time for me to stop running. I drank and I used and I ran for a long time, not to be the person who I am today. And I got to tell you, I like who I am today, and it feels real good just to be me. And I owe it to this program. It's changed my life. And it's funny, I was talking to Kathy earlier before the meeting started, and we were talking about turmoil in our lives, and before I got here, I looked for it. I mean, I didn't realize it, but I looked for it, and I made it. Everywhere I went, my life was just upside down all the time, and I never understood why. And now I can look back, and I know why. And I don't do that anymore. Most of the time, I have both feet on the ground, and I know what's going on around me, and I'm somewhat organized. Not all the time. Not like I'd like to be, but most of the time. Anyways, it feels great. Those of you who have been up here before me know, but for the newcomers who haven't been up here yet, hang in there, because you're really in for a treat. Keep coming back. Thanks.
Our second cake tonight is for Lisa for 6 years, and Wendy will give her cake.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lisa. Happy birthday to you. Keep coming back.
My name's Lisa Wolf. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Lisa.
I didn't want to come here tonight. Just out of purely selfish reasons. I really don't like taking cakes. And my birthday was Wednesday, and my mom gave me a cake at a book study I go to. And my mom got me in this program. She said enough's enough, and got tired of watching me bounce off walls and said, let's go. I was 17 then, and I don't have any turmoil in my life today, Lori, and if you stay sober one day at a time, maybe that can be for you too. I remember when Lori first came in, and she wouldn't talk to anyone. And I was a lot like that too, because I was really frightened of everyone, and mostly myself. If you're afraid to go to bed at night because you're afraid of what you might dream, just keep coming back to meetings and stay sober and don't drink no matter what. That's the only way that's the only guarantee you have of staying sober, is not drinking. And I'm really grateful. Thank you.
And And our last birthday tonight is for Joey D. for 12 years, and Tracy will give him his cake.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joey. Happy birthday to you. Keep coming back.
My name's Joe, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Joe.
I like the double digits. I really do, and it's hard to believe. It's been 12 years. Christ, it's been a good 12 years and a bad 12 years. I had ups and downs and highs and lows, and my God has done good and bad and all sorts of things, and I hear slight rumors running around that long-term sobriety doesn't mean anything, and it's if you're spiritual. You know, if you're spiritual, you can drink, and it's okay. You know, I've been catching this shit, you know, and I don't know. There's some long-term sobriety in this room, and I'm awful thankful for the people who have walked before me. Because my God, they've been there, and I have to sit, you know, and whenever something comes up, it's there. And there's a lady here who's been my Eskimo. Whenever I get down or in trouble, she tends to find me at meetings, and you know, automatically she says, "What's wrong?" And I say, "Why?" And she says, "You've been at too many meetings." She hasn't changed. That lady's Pat, and she's watched me through the 12 years. I love her for it. And the other person is the saint. You know, there are times that's all I had was just my sobriety, and I felt like a piece of garbage, and walked into this room many a times, and Ray would put his arms around me and hug me and tell me it's going to be okay, just don't drink and use no matter what, and it's got to get better, and I thank him for that today. And Bill C., my boy Billy, he and I for the last 11 years had our funds. I mean, I look at poor Bill today, and I don't even say poor Bill, it's great Bill today. And his program works, and he's there. If you had to know Bill when he came in, he used to try to make his payroll at Hollywood Park with whatever money he made. He would go at Hollywood Park. And he was wonderful. That's some of the benefits of staying sober. And my God, no matter what, for the new people, the people with 1 year, 6 months, 30 days, one day at a time, and without your physical sobriety, you have nothing. You don't even have a shot at anything else. And if you don't stay physically sober, you don't have a shot. You may miss it. You just may miss it. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations to all the chip takers and all the birthday people. Tonight, our first speaker is Ray.
I am an alcoholic. My name is Ray.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, y'all. And hiya, Bill. And Joe, happy birthday. And everybody else. And welcome to the Beverly Glen speaker meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to hang around this group a little bit. You know, watch the people come and go and all that. Anyway, I said I was an alcoholic. And, yeah, I want to thank Tanya and Fred for allowing me to share here tonight. And it's already been very emotional. I don't know, you know. And I just like to say that I love the emotions that permeate. You know, it sort of starts, and a leader starts, and all of a sudden a meeting starts to take off, and those feelings start to go, you know, and wow, and pretty soon I'm sitting down there and saying, God, who's that talking? Who's that? You know, and I get all kind of excited inside. I do. I'm just telling you how that's the way it is with me. I know a lot of people here, and And Julie, I got a crush on. I won't tell her why. I'll tell you why, but no, I won't. That's okay. But go ahead. She got a tattoo right on her shoulder, and it just turns me on so much. Now, in the summertime, you can look, but you're going to have to pull it down a little bit to catch the... Anyway. How many people here are new? I got about 3 or 4 minutes here. How many people are real new? Beautiful, beautiful. 28 days. Clean and sober, right? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure, you know. Well, I just want to say that I am clean and sober for 17 years and 3 months on a continual basis. Does that impress you, Russell? Well, that's okay. What are you going to do, you know? I haven't even got a line for that, but... Well, it impresses me a little bit, and I owe every bit that I have, every bit, to Alcoholics Anonymous. Joe said it. Without my physical sobriety, I haven't got anything. And I'm one of those alcoholics that really believes that. I believe I must be physically sober in order to get anything else. It just happens to happen that way. I believe not to take any pills. That's my deal. You know, a lot of times you go to a meeting, and you know, and the first thing comes out, they say, "Well, you know, we're not doctors here." Oh, Jesus, how many times have I heard that? I'm not talking about those doctor pills. I'm talking about the head pills, you know, the ones that give me a little Valium, to give me a little mellow during the day or something like that, a little second O2 and all those things, you know, little sleeping pills, you know, who knows? I don't take any of that stuff. I just clean on that. And I don't smoke any, I never did smoke any gray. I never did do a lot of things. I just drank, and I love gin, and, but I don't do any of the other things either. And it's very important for me, especially if you're new. That at least right now, that you're hearing that from me, because that's all the message I got. If anybody knows me, I'll be yakking the same thing 25 years from now, you know. Don't drink. Say a little prayer. You know. How bloody boring, you know. You know, there's Ray again. Yeah, don't drink. And but that's all I know. I like to say I know more, but I don't. I like to fill in with a lot of good stuff, but I don't. You have a wonderful speaker. I'm sure that you'll love him. But that's the way it is with me, and it has been that way for, as I said, 17 years on a continual basis. I love, and I want to say this because I don't normally say this. I truly love, and I'm beginning to love the people of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what's more, I'm beginning to feel the love that they give to me. And I feel it. I see it in their eyes. And like I said, I'm just now coming around to that. A lot of times I'm so busy, you know, don't drink, don't use. And I forget sometimes that the people love me, and I love them. I care that if you're new here tonight, I care if you stay. The ones that are scared and crying inside and dying a little bit, I care about you. And the people that cared about me, some of them are sitting in this room, some in the front row, Pat Albers, Julie, Jim Wigney, a few of the people that were here when I got here. And they love me. They love me back. And so I just put a vote in for Alcoholics Anonymous, a whole and complete answer for this alcoholic. And I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, would you please remain seated for the seventh tradition, which states we are self-supporting through our own contribution. Tonight I have asked Tracy to read the 12 traditions.
Hi, I'm Tracy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tracy.
Number 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, and TV. 12, anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Thanks.
Okay, and tonight our second speaker is Tom W.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Whalen, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Tom. I'll wait for our newcomer to come back. I guarantee he'll be at a different meeting next week. Anyway, I was not feeling particularly well yesterday, and I had a chance of telling this dreary story. And I just had the most wonderful feeling of elation when I left the meeting hall, and I just felt like on top of the world. And that's part of the deal, I guess, having an opportunity to share our stories with each other, is that we kind of put it back into perspective a little bit. There are a lot of new people here tonight, and I hope that you'll find what I found, and that you can stay sober and relatively sane and comfortable a day at a time. And I wish it upon all of you new people. Most don't stay. Most, I guess, what is it, less than 1% of the population of alcoholics ever find their way into an AA meeting, and very few of us stay. The ones of us that hang around for a while are very rare. That's why to see Julie and Don that were at my first meeting, it's just phenomenal. And there is just not many of us around. It's just sort of a sobering thought. No pun intended, or I guess it was intended, I guess. Anyway, I'd like to tell the new people that all we have to share is our stories. What I used to be like, what happened to me, and what I'm like now. Maybe how I worked the program. Maybe some identification in what I used to be like and what I'm like now that you might like or be interested in. I'd like to think that I might be of some help to that. Mainly, I do what I do because I have to stay sober. And as I said last night, I've had a very difficult year. It's been the most terrible year of my life. I've been full of depression and unhappiness. All the joy that I had for so many years in Alcoholics Anonymous is gone out of my life, and I just go through the motions and just somehow hope it'll get better and get through this year. And that's the way it's been most of the time. But I've continued to do the things that I was told to do when I first got sober, and eventually I'll get out of this thing, I'm sure. But I'm not there yet. Anyway, I have an opportunity to share because I sponsor a lot of people and tell them parts of my story in small ways or over a coffee cup or a telephone call or I'm in a formal gathering like this, and I always feel better after I do it. I always feel phenomenal. I was in terrible shape I guess it was about a month and a half ago, and I thought, I'm not going to that meeting tonight. I just don't want to go. I'm going to stay home and watch television, you know, and I just don't want to be around people. I just want to be home. Thank you. And some jerk I sponsor called me on the phone. He had some earth-shattering problem. I don't know. I guess somebody looked at him funny. I forget what it was. And I said, well, come on over and I'll cook you dinner and we'll talk about it. And we did that. He came over. We talked. We went to the meeting. And I got home and I was pushing my buttons to start the television show that was at 10 o'clock. And I felt like I was higher than a kite. I just felt tremendous. And I thought, what's the matter with me? I'm out of my depression. What's the matter? You know, something's wrong here. And it dawned on me, the one reason that I felt better is that I was out doing something for somebody else. And that is what we do here. We just share with each other and tell our stories, and as boring as they may be after a while, but I'll get into it. I'm an alcoholic because I suffer from the disease of alcoholism. A lot of people have excuses for being alcoholics. Their parents and whatever. Christ, I've got whole organizations for that now. And I'm just an alcoholic because I drank alcohol, and I suffer from this disease. And I had little or nothing to do with it. But on the other hand, I can't blame anybody for it. I was raised kind of badly. Actually, I had no role models at home that drank. Everybody in my house didn't drink, and I had to learn all by myself. And it was kind of a sad deal. I was raised kind of funny. My father was a hard-working electrical contractor in the West Los Angeles area. My sister was a very well-known movie actress in the late 30s and 40s, and I wanted what she had, and I wanted her kind of life. I wanted somebody to stop me on the street someday and ask me for my autograph. And my reality is that I was to have cut-up hands and broken-up foreheads, crawling around underneath houses and around attics for a living and messing myself up because I'm an electrical contractor now. And I keep thinking I should be doing something else. Maybe somebody will discover me someday. I don't know. You know, I'm available. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know that I drank over any of that. I don't know whether I drank because my parents were older than the other were. My mother's big deal would go to the altar society, you know, that was a big thing. And, you know, my father wore overalls, and I was embarrassed about them. But I don't know whether I drank about that. You know, I have no idea. I just know when I got to New York, and I was around Times Square and Bop City and Birdland and Stork Club and El Morocco and those kind of places, and liquor was involved, and Fine's theater tickets and all that stuff, and Westchester Country Club, and I just enjoyed that kind of life. And alcohol was a big deal about it. It seemed like the people that drank were having a better time. And the people that didn't drink were sort of mopey. My dad went to bed every night at 9 o'clock. And, you know, that just, you know, you be the judge, you know. Well, my drinking sort of got out of hand, which I'm sure a few of yours did, too. I drank, became a daily drinker when I was a junior in high school, and I continued to drink. I went in the Army. I got out of the Army in 1956. And I found myself married to a girl that we shouldn't even have dated. But, you know, she came, you know, well, she came down to Fort Smith, Arkansas, you know. She had a trip. Her folks offered her a month trip in Hawaii, and she chose Fort Smith, Arkansas to marry me. That's how sick she was, you know. But every alcoholic that I've ever known has to have someone near and dear to them that loves to suffer, and that was her, it was me. So the marriage didn't last very long. Only lasted about 20 years. And out of that marriage came these two sons. And I got out of the Army in '56 and went back to work for my father in this electrical contracting business, which I didn't like. And I had some sort of an idea that you shouldn't drink during the day. And I want you to understand that I was raised very well. I know how to act. I know how to talk. I know how to behave and what to do and what not to do. And I'm very upset today with the way they drink in the construction business, you know. And today they have beer breaks at 10 o'clock. They drink all through lunch, you know. At 3 o'clock they bring out the case or the barrel of beer or whatever. I drank kind of properly. I just laid in the back seat of my car and drank hot vodka, you know. I just think there's something wrong with people that are upfront about their drinking. I just think drinking's meant to be snuck around with. That's what I did. Anyway, but I wasn't supposed to be drinking that much. And these times I'm talking about, I was only drinking maybe a half a pint a day. And I just sort of drank, and I sort of enjoyed it. I drank in the evenings. I drank every evening, and sometimes I got by with it, and sometimes I got a little loaded. I got drunk on the weekends, but it's kind of expected. I got wash the car and cut the lawn and get a little high, you know, and go to the parties and have to listen to Sunday morning critiques about, well, you really did it last night, and why can't you drink like so-and-so, and why do you drink before dinner and during dinner and after dinner? Why can't you wait? And, you know, I don't know. It was there. I don't know. It was just like... Why don't you wait till we get to the restaurant? Why do you drink in the car? You know, and all this. I don't know. These are questions people ask you, and there just are no answers to. You know, I don't know. Sit at the kitchen sink, 11 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the morning, fixing the last drink of the day. I'm never going to drink it. I'm going to be gone in a few minutes. But I just feel like having another drink. I don't want to make a big deal about it. I'm not really an alcoholic. I don't want to get drunk or tie one on or celebrate or whatever. I just feel like having one more drink. Just one more. Not a whole lot. Just one more drink. I have never ordered a drink in a bar or fixed a drink at home when I haven't been plotting and planning, wondering how I'm going to get the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But it's always the next drink. Just one more drink. That's all I really want to do. And I don't want to make an ass out of myself and pass out and get sick and make a goof out of myself. I just want to have another drink and just kind of fit in and get along with people, you know, and it's the big deal, you know. And I found myself, I found myself, people better quiet down and just, God. Need more Quaaludes in this group or something. I don't know. Anyway, I drank this way for a while, and I didn't understand. I wasn't sophisticated enough to know that I was an addict. I had no way of knowing any of this sort of stuff. I just know that at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd get a little nervous, a little quick, you know, and I passed off of being a little high-strung, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I found out that if I take a couple of Suckinol sleeping pills in the morning, I'd just sail through the morning. There would be no particular problem. Go on the job, you know, the customers are trying to show me their seating outlets, and I'm looking at the floor plugs. You know, I didn't understand that I needed a drink, but, you know, you can't do electrical work, hot wires and whatever. When you're shaking apart, you got to be mellow. And I found out quite by accident that if you go into a delicatessen for lunch and you have a couple of beers or a pastrami sandwich, that's not terribly alcoholic. It just... what I did, and if you have a shitty morning and a few drinks for lunch and a great afternoon, there's a message there for you new people. You know, why suffer? You know, there's basically two types of alcoholics. There's daily drinkers like I am, and there's periodics. I don't even understand periodics. I think they're a little bent. I think they're a little strange. I can't imagine why anybody would put up with the kind of pain that periodics put up with, you know, when relief is literally a swallow away. I just don't understand any of that at all. But periodics won't drink, you know, for months at a time. They'll have one drink and they'll wake up in some exotic land like Cleveland or something, and it's real exciting. You know, I just got up every morning on Ashby Avenue and had a few drinks and went to work. You know, I don't think that's not very romantic, but that's what I did. And anyway, I didn't understand the drinking part of this whole thing. And I found out instead of drinking once in a while for lunch, it was drinking every day for lunch. And that would have been all right, I think. I don't think drinking for lunch is necessarily a sign of an alcoholic, but my lunches got earlier and earlier. Sometimes I'd have lunch at 6 o'clock in the morning. It seemed like a pretty good idea. And I didn't understand I was addicted to alcohol. I did not know any of this sort of stuff. And I just kept doing it. I kept drinking whenever I needed a drink. And I had a bottle in the back of my house and one in the garage and one in the front seat of my car. And I could work bottle A into bottle B and watch the line go up in the little bottle that I had on the kitchen sink. And that's the way I kind of snuck around and drank. And but I was getting very ill, very sick. I'd come out of blackouts in the middle of the afternoon or in the middle of the morning wondering if I've done these jobs or where have I been, have I taken care of this deal, and what's going on. And I would find myself sobbing and crying and wondering what's wrong with me. Why am I so screwed up? Why is everybody that I seem to know, my friends or whatever, getting ahead in life, and I had everything offered to me and given to me, and I never wanted for anything, and yet I just didn't have what it takes to carry it out. I've always wanted to be a man and be responsible and be an adult. And I think really the way I only drank so I could sort of, I don't know, control and enjoy my drinking, as it says in our our big book. And the funny part about that whole thing is says controlling and enjoying our drinking, that when we're controlling it, we're not enjoying it. And when we're enjoying it, we're certainly not controlling it. And that's was kind of like the way I found myself. And this is all simple now. This is all retrospect. This is all I wasn't thinking about at the time. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. But I sought the help of psychiatrists, because this is the kind of stuff that we used to do in the late 50s and 60s. We saw a psychiatrist, and we could tell him about our highs and our lows and our strange childhood and our parents and sister and all the stuff that I told him about. And I told him everything except one thing, how much I drank. And he asked me periodically, how much do you drink, Tom? And I told him 6 or 8 ounces of alcohol a day. Doctor, it seemed like a normal amount for a heavy drinker to drink, and I'm more than happy to be a heavy drinker because it is a sign of manhood, of a sign of adulthood or whatever, to be able to, like I said earlier, to control and enjoy my drinking. And so I couldn't tell him how much I drank, because I'm afraid he'd tell me to cut it out, and or cut it back or whatever. And so I just lied about my drinking, and it turned out to be my number one problem. It was the one thing I will not discuss with him or anybody else. And so I didn't have a prayer of getting well. And I saw this guy about 3 or 4 years, in and out of private therapy and group therapy and all the therapies you can dream up, and I got sicker and sicker and sicker because I could not deal with or admit to what was wrong with me. And so I went on this way, and the drinking increased, but it worked. What I mean by it worked is that I would drink for lunch, for instance, and I hadn't had a drink at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm starting to shake and get nervous, and I'd go in the little club right around the corner from my psychiatrist's office, and I'd sit there and have 3 or 4 double vodkas and double scotches, whatever. And I'd get myself together, and I'd go in and talk to this doctor for his 50-minute hour, and I'd be in fine shape. And the alcohol worked, you know, and if people complain all the time about, the terrible blackouts. What big deal? What's the big deal about blackouts? You know, half the stuff that we forget isn't even worth remembering, and it's just ridiculous. Talk about how sick I was. And I don't mind vomiting on my shoes or your shoes if you're standing too close. Doesn't make any difference. It's a small price to pay for something that makes you feel so goddamn good, as far as I'm concerned. And so I continued to drink, and I did everything that I could do to continue to drink. And but the alcohol worked, and then it stopped working. I tell it like it happened on a Thursday at 4:20, but it happened over a period of time when the alcohol, I'd be caught drunk when I really didn't have enough to drink to be drunk. Or sometimes I'd have a whole mess to drink and drive everybody home, and I would seem to be all right. And this particular day, I'm sitting in this doctor's office, and we're talking about something, and all of a sudden he looked at me and he said, you know, you're drunk. I said, what do you mean I'm drunk? He said, you look drunk, you act drunk, and you smell drunk. I assume you're drunk. And I said, well, I had a couple of drinks for lunch. He says, I think it's a little bit more than that, a little bit more recent. And he was going to help with my drinking problem, albeit my non-existent drinking problem. But I'll go along with the gag, you know, whatever, you know. And he put me on heavy dose of Librium and heavy dose of Stelazine, and I was going to be just fine. Hey! If I was like I thought I was, just a little mildly neurotic, it probably would have worked fine, you know. And I took the pills as prescribed. Christ, I even took them more than prescribed. I want to get well, you know. I want to get well, and I want to get well now. I don't be waiting around, you know. I went back to see him a week later, and I said, you know, I feel better this week than I have felt in a long time. I have a certain inner peace that seems to permeate my life. I have a certain tranquility on the job. There's a certain hominess at home, you know. He said, that's amazing. Not this soon do people get this immediate result from these tranquilizing drugs. And I said, well, I guess I'm very fortunate. I said, incidentally, I need another prescription. He said, you couldn't possibly. I gave you a month's supply. I said, well, they're gone. I don't know where they are. They're somewhere. So he wrote another prescription. I had his too. I had some from some other doctors. I started popping these pills like M&Ms, and I want to tell you, I got real strange. You know, I drive down Wilshire Boulevard at 10 o'clock in the morning, get to a little innocuous corner like Wilshire and Westwood. You know, I'd sit there and wait for the signal to change. You know, it'd take about an hour and a half, and I'd wake up, you know, and lady in front of me want to have her car fixed too. You know, I just some nights I'd come home and rip that house apart, terrorize that house, that wife and family, and this rage I would get into. Some nights come home just as peaceful as I am this evening, even more peaceful. Come home 4:30 or 5 o'clock again, lay down the living room rug, take a little nap before dinner time, you know. Sometimes I'd miss dinner, but there's other meals, and get up at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, go take a leak in the linen closet, and go to bed. Just another evening at home, you know. My wife was losing her sense of humor over a lot of this sort of stuff. And so she filed for divorce, but don't worry, this goes on all the time. We're always getting a divorce, and, you know, it's just got to be so boring. I've done it drunk, and I've done it sober. I think it's easier drunk. You don't feel it so much. You know, you grab the trunk and get 6 pair of socks and no shorts, and it's all real unsatisfactory, and then time passes, you know, and then you reconcile and try to recapture what never really was, but it just gets to be so boring. Anyway, I'd like to remind you all that we're at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is serious. Anyway, I ended up in a one-room place right behind my favorite drinking bar, the Cork and Fork, over on Worcester Boulevard, and I sit there. Later on it became a Mexican restaurant, which kind of served them right, but that's where it was where I was there, and I had a little apartment right behind, and I kind of a routine of sitting, you know, getting up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, sitting on the edge of my wet bed from perspiration or what have you, and somehow stumbling to my linen closet and pouring a long, tall drink of vodka and have another one, and by 8 o'clock in the morning I felt pretty good. Had the murine in the eyes and the dark glasses on so nobody could look on and see there was nobody home, you know, and I'd somehow show up for work. Last until lunchtime some days. Some days I didn't last until lunchtime. I had to go out to my... Excuse me, I'll be right back. I've just got to go out to the hardware store for something. I just lay down the front seat of my car, the back seat of my car, and drink a little hot vodka, and then I get my motor running where I could, you know, somehow last until lunchtime. And I sat, not at the bar now, I sat at a booth and read my Herald Examiner. Now, the alcoholics are at the bar. Now, I know they're at the bar, and I know they're alcoholics because they're in there every single solitary day for lunch. It never once dawned on me. The only reason I knew they were in there every day for lunch is that I was in there every day for lunch. But they were the alcoholics, and I'm just this poor neurotic whose wife has divorced him and is losing his business and hopelessly in debt and all of these horrible stories. And I had some cockamamie notion that somehow, some way, someday, some way I'd be taken out of this situation and something would be done, certainly by no action on my part, I'd like to add. But that's the way I kind of felt, and that's the way I felt about myself. I had a miserable year, the year of 1965. It was just horrible. Tried not drinking that year one day, and my wife came to visit me in October of 65. She said she wanted to see me while I wasn't drinking. She had no idea I was home on my vodka break at 10 in the morning, and she pretty much took my inventory, told me what kind of a husband I was, what kind of a father I was, what kind of a son I was to my own mother and dad, and I just listened to her. I had no fight left. I couldn't argue the point. And mercifully, she left in about 20 minutes, and I just flipped out. I just went temporarily insane, I suppose, and I just went crazy. And I had a brand-new bottle of Second-Off sleeping pills, and I took all of those and a bunch of scotch, and I just checked out. And it was the understandable thing to do. There was no real reason for me to go on another 5 minutes. I was hopelessly in debt. I owed over $12,000, and in 1965, that was a lot of money. I couldn't even keep my, whatever I was trying to keep payments up of my current stuff, and I just had no way of paying it back. And people don't need drunken electricians around their projects, so I was losing my business. I'd lost my wife and my family and my house, and everything that was near and dear to me was gone, and I guess it had to be gone for me to be put into a position where I could no longer defend, not my right to drink particularly, because it wasn't really an issue, but I could no longer defend the way I was living, the way I was conducting my life, and the sick and the sordid things that I was getting myself involved with. I could no longer defend. And so I just really wanted out. I just wanted some peace and just get out of it. And a kid that was working for me part-time thought I was acting kind of bizarrely lately, and he came to my apartment, found me in this coma. They called the ambulance and rushed me up to UCLA Medical Center, where they pumped me full of holes, and I was to stay in there for about 13 hours, and I came to, and I guess my vital signs came around, and they put me in an ambulance and shipped me off to a mental institution where I was to stay, but not for alcohol. Something more respectable, which was suicide. And I was in there for a while, and it wasn't really all that bad, really. I could listen to my jazz music and read my books, and they gave me my drugs that I needed, and they let me out eventually. I made my ashtray well enough so they let me out. And I got in the car, and I want you to see what I was seeing in those days, that I was not really an alcoholic because it didn't come up. But I knew that I needed a quart of vodka and a quart of scotch because there was nothing left in the house. And so I got that. I stayed drunk that weekend. I tried to go back to work on Monday morning, and I was too ill and too afraid to drink too much, but I had to have enough so I wouldn't be shaking so much. And I got on the fourth rung of the ladder to change some light bulbs for a lady on the corner of Foothill and Sunset, and I was shaking so badly I couldn't do it, which changing light bulbs is not overly technical, I'd like to add. And I said, I got the flu, I got to come back another day, ma'am, or whatever. And I went into a psychiatrist's office, and I saw this guy 5 days a week. And if any of you are wondering how I'm affording all this, I'm not. My father's bailing me out. And that's what he had to do over and over again. Even to my few years in sobriety, I've never been man enough to be able to do what adults do, to be responsible enough to do what fathers do, or husbands do, or managers of business do. And I'm 32 years old, and I'm just a flake. I think if there was a word flake in 1965, my picture would have been next to it in the dictionary. That's the way I was. I just was totally irresponsible and just didn't know how to act, and yet I tried. I did all that I could do. I had a house payment of $79 a month for several years in Westwood. I never once made it without a late charge attached. I had nothing but bad check charges, and I was constantly kiting checks from one security bank to the Crocker Bank. It just got to be silly. And that's the way I lived my life, and it was through no fault of my own, I'd like to add, too, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. And I'm certainly not going to ask anybody any questions, but I just didn't know how to do anything. And this is the way it was. And and it didn't leave me just because I walked through that miraculous door in Alcoholics Anonymous. I still was the first few years, because I just didn't know how to act. But anyway, I went to Mass on Christmas of '65, and at the end of the Mass is a prayer called the Agnus Dei. At the end of the prayer it says, grant us peace. I remember saying, grant me peace. Screw the rest of them. They look fine to me. I'm the one that needs the peace. And I didn't want to stop drinking. I just wanted to sleep for more than 2 hours at a time without waking up with a glass, that awful burning sensation in my throat, and having to reach for that glass of carefully prepared iced scotch and drink it and hope I'd get back to sleep. And that's the way I spent the last year of my drinking. And I asked God to grant me some peace. And I didn't realize what he was going to do, but 2 days later, I woke up much like any other morning. Nothing new had happened in my life. I got my morning drinks and got myself ready to go to work. And I went to put the bottle of vodka back on the top shelf, and there was a bottle of Ballantine scotch with about that much left. And I thought, Christ, that's a lot of scotch since 8 o'clock the night before. It was remarkable how much I was drinking, and yet it was no more or no less than I had been drinking all along. And it was just, I couldn't get it out of my mind. It was like an obsession how much I was drinking, and I couldn't get over it. And I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went to Ohio Street on a Tuesday night. And I sat in the back of the room. You're supposed to sit when you're new, Sat back there on my hands with my dark glasses on, and I sort of purple in color, and I had green slime coming out of my mouth from the breath purifiers I chewed, so nobody would know I was drinking. And I sat back there, and some jerk raised my hand for me as a newcomer, which I think was very nice. I was only there visiting. But I did what they told me. I kept coming back. I kept drinking, but I kept coming back. And finally I walked up to a man who's my sponsor, and I said, excuse me, sir, you seem to be some sort of a big deal around here. How do you join Alcoholics Anonymous? How do you become a member? And he says, you don't drink, kid. I said, yes, I'm planning on cutting down. And he said, no, you really don't have a grasp of our program. We don't drink here a day at a time. I said, well, I can't go a whole day without a drink. I tried it one day in July, and it damn near killed me. I just can't do that. He said, well, for you, maybe a half a day at a time, ha, 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 and he had a bunch of his people he sponsored and some of his friends around. If you can't make fun and exploit the newcomers, what good are they, And so anyway, which you found out tonight, So, I went tearing back to my psychiatrist, and I said, I've been to these AA meetings, which is a revelation to him, because we never discussed my drinking. And he said, hey, not to worry. I understand they do wild things over there. I said, well, it's crazy what they do over there. I'm afraid what will happen to me. He said, not to worry. And he reached in his drawer, and he pulled a whole big bag of Librium out and said, here, take these. It'll get you the rough spots. I thought, great. Well, I made the mistake of sharing this with my soon-to-be sponsor, and he informed me that I was going to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous as opposed to one that just didn't drink, but if I was going to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't drink alcohol, we don't take pills that affect from the neck up, we don't shoot non-habit-forming heroin, we rarely smoke marijuana. I guess they tell you come in today, they tell you to cut back a little bit on your cocaine and crack, so I just didn't know what to do. But I took the advice of this advertising man who was sober about 8 years in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I took his advice. And I walked up and down the Santa Monica beach on a cold January day, shaking and sweating, and every nerve ending of my body is crying out to give me some booze, give me something, and I had nothing all that morning or that noon or that afternoon. I went to a meeting that night, and I sat on my hands for those first few meetings because I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. I used to get up during the meeting and get my coffee, and my sponsor would put me back down in the seat and said, sit down with the rest of the alcoholics until the coffee break. And I thought, what have I got myself involved with here, you know? I learned that sort of stuff early on, and I did not drink a day at a time. And little by little, I don't know, I guess I eventually stopped shaking. It took me a long time. I thought my hands would never get dry because I sweat so much. It was just horrible. And it was January, and everybody else was freezing, and I'm perspiring all the time. Anyway, my wife and I reconciled. We put the family back together again. The business went on. We got a second trust deed on the home, and it seemed like life was going to be just fine. And but unfortunately, as said earlier tonight, and which will be said to you daily here, life goes on. It doesn't make any difference whether you're drunk or sober. Life simply goes on. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to hit you with that news, but it's a sad state of affairs because life is full of good things and bad things and tragedies and triumphs and joys and sorrows, and you just don't drink no matter what. No matter what, you just don't take the first drink. A lot of people miss that. They think, well, I can have one, and everybody in this room knows it's not the first drink that gets you drunk. That's ridiculous. One drink doesn't do anything. You know, I don't even feel it. It's the ninth drink, or it's the seventh one, or it's the combination or whatever, and I got to watch that now. And you learn here in Alcoholics Anonymous that it's the first drink that gets you drunk. You just don't take the first drink, no matter what. You just don't take the first drink. And I learned that early on. I meant to drink many times. I've had to drink many times. It's been necessary for me to drink many times. In my early sobriety, I'd go off crazy to go out and get a drink, but I always called my sponsor first and told him what I was doing. And he would find something else for me to do, so I wouldn't take that first drink. And so in January, when I get my cake with 21 candles on it, I can't be sober that long. Anyone that had to drink and wanted to drink and needed to drink the way I drank, a day at a time, because I was a daily drinker, to think that I'm sober that long is just an absolute miracle. There's just no other way to explain it. It just can't be done. You cannot take someone like me and make a sober person out of them. It just cannot be done. And that's what happens here in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just, I get all funny even thinking about it. I just don't know how any of us are sober. That's what makes it just such a remarkable program. But I got very active on that program, and I got this man as a sponsor, and I read the book and went to meetings every night. I went to meetings every night in the first couple of years of my sobriety because I just did. You know, I don't know how people got. I don't know how I stayed sober. I just don't know. But I mean, you know, you just did it a day at a time. Just go to meetings and don't drink and do all that stuff. And I had a lot of experiences. I guess it was sort of a honeymoon that first few months. It was fun being sober, you know. It was exciting in the meetings and the amusing stories and all the stuff that you hear. And I would have told you then that I went to work every day, and I did go to work every day, but some days I'd come home at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just go to bed because I just could not go on for a whole day, you know, without something, you know, so I would just couldn't face it. And I wouldn't have admitted that in those early months. But I went to meetings every night and somehow stayed sober. I fell apart when I was sober about 8 or 9 months. I'd been to a Friday night meeting at Ohio Street, and I just sort of flipped out at the end of the meeting. I was sitting in my car crying and shaking. I thought, Christ, I'm cracking up just like the good old days, and I didn't know what to do. I went over to his sponsor's house. I drove up on his front lawn, and he came out and, you know, want to know why I wouldn't park on the street with the rest of the cars. And I said, I got to talk to you, and I got to talk to you now. I can't park the car, you know. And so he made me park the car and came in the house, and we sat around the coffee table. And I'm a very pragmatic person. I just... you know, things are very black and white with me sometimes in my life. And I'm an electrical contractor. I do a lot of trouble work, and I notice this light looks like it's going to fall down any minute. But I, over the newcomer. But, you know, and it looks like you have a burned out light bulb, too. I just like to add that up. And I can fix that. You know, it's just a few things that can be, and I'll go up and change it or replace it or whatever and get my money and go on. And sometimes life isn't like that, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And we walked around the block a couple of times, and he suggested to me that I take a 4-step, which is a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. And I thought, how could he even suggest that? After the years I'd spent in the Catholic system, of the years I'd spent on the psychiatric couches of America, you know, how can you even suggest this, you know? But interestingly enough, I was never able to tell a Catholic priest in confession these things that I was to put later into this 4th step because they were too tacky, too embarrassing, too sinful, if you will, things I could never tell a psychiatrist. You can't tell them that kind of stuff. They'll think you're crazy. You know, you just... So you got to be very guarded about stuff. And I was very guarded about my life and my thoughts and the way I carried on in my life. And so I was able to put these things down in this 4th step, and I shared it with him in the 5th step. And he seemed rather bored through it all. He said, have you heard all before? And of course he had. I've heard a couple of dozen of them. There's just so much you can do, and there's just so much you can think about. And there really are no big deals. And the longer I'm sober, the more that I don't believe it anymore. I just know it. There really are no big deals. And as long as you do not take the first drink and you get a sponsor and your friends here, this is the fellowship and the program and the steps and the book and all that other stuff, you can just literally get through anything. You can survive anything. I can't even think of anything that you can't get through soberly. And but in those days it was a little bit different. I made an attempt at a 8-step, which is making a list of the people I had harmed. I didn't mind putting down people where you could walk up to them and say, hey, sorry, just kidding, you know. But where it pertained to money, that was a different deal, you know, and my business problems. You know, and you can't turn your electrical business over to a higher power. They didn't even have electricity in his day. What does he know about that kind of stuff? You can't tell problems with wives and families and children and stuff. He walked around the desert in that moo-moo. How could he handle that kind of stuff? So I prayed for things, and I was very guarded about stuff, and I was very guarded what I was going to share. And I was talking to Eddie Regan one day, and he wanted why I wouldn't go home and open up the drawer and get all those bills out and start making those amends. And I thought, how do you know about that drawer? I never did understand that. But I did that. It took me 11 and a half years to get out of debt. It's not exactly rocket to stardom, but that's what it took me. Would have happened a lot sooner if I had been more mature, if I had been more responsible, if I'd been more adult about it and a little bit hurried, I would have paid it off earlier, but I'm not that quick. And so took me that much time. Had problems with the wife, obviously. Had the kids were growing up. They're now getting into alcohol and drugs, and that doesn't seem to be fair after all that I had been through and all of my experience. And after that, with the experience, strength, and help and hope, that they wouldn't have had to go through it all, but they had their own journey to go through. And I was off doing my meetings, I suppose, and they got into their alcohol and drugs, and the marriage fell apart. And finally, in 1974, after several separations and trials and tribulations that went on in those first several years, which it does for most of us, she filed for divorce, and I was delighted. I moved 80 miles away from where I had a business, where I had a home, where I had a family, and started life all over again in a little community of Dana Point, where I live around there now. As I was driving down the freeway, you know, after those of us in the room that have been sober a while, you don't want to screw this thing up once you get it, and you want to be very careful. You want to mess it up. And so I said a prayer that pertained to my will and his will, and I'll share it with you. My sponsor had given it to me, and I committed it to memory, so I say it several times every day. But in those days, I was saying as I was driving down to South Orange County, and it goes like this: God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me, and I cannot know for certain where it'll end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe this. I believe the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in everything I do, and I hope I never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about the time. I may seem to be lost. In the very shadow of death, I'll not be afraid, because I know you will never leave me to face my troubles all alone. And with this, I continued on down the freeway. Of course, the kind of apartment I want the business to be run, none of which happened. I got a nicer apartment for a lot less money, and my business went along pretty good, and got out of debt at least, and so it worked out quite well. I got out of debt, and then the IRS found out about it, and that that's a whole nother evening. And I got those bastards paid off, and last July I was audited again. I'm back into debt. It just doesn't seem to be fair. I think if I ever get out of debt now, I'll just move to Brazil. It just seems wrong somehow. But it's just part of the deal, I guess, so they tell you. I went in there to make my final payment, and I had such a scene in there because I couldn't get anybody to listen to my story. I pitched a fit. I had an audience, which was fun too. You know, I had all the people waiting to be audited, and all the people being audited, with the auditors popping up, looking over their little things, watching this madman out there. I just kind of secretly wished I had it on videotape. I could have played it when I got home. Called my accountant, told him what I had done. He said, "Oh, don't worry about that, Tom. They got people like you, but 3 or 4 or 5 people like you in there a week." Anyway, I moved down to Orange County, as I say, and I dated, first one and that one and various stuff, which is very unsatisfactory. I just think dating's for the birds. It's awful. And I met a little girl who was helping her dad set up the Palm Springs Roundup, and we started to date. And we went together for a while, and then we split up, and then her father passed away, and she went down and stayed with her mother for a while in the desert. And she came back to Orange County, and we had the same, very similar sobriety dates. Hers is the 9th, and mine's the 6th of January, and she got sober in 70, and I got sober in 66. And her natal birthdays are right together. Mine's the 19th, and hers is the 20th of August. And she called me and wanted me to go out for our birthday in August. And so I thought, well, what can it take, you know? One dinner, big deal. We got married after that, which happens. And we had a wonderful life. We just had fun, and we laughed a lot, and we loved each other, and we cared for each other, and really worked the program in our marriage. And we kind of raised these kids in and out of the house. My 2 sons, and she had 3 daughters and a son, and just had a good life. We just had a marvelous time. My youngest son came down to Orange County to live in Dana Point and worked for me because he had lost another job and lost another car and cracked up another place and was evicted from another apartment, and he was hopelessly into alcohol and drugs. And I told him, I said, "Jim, if you come down there and work for me, you can't drink and you can't use drugs in front of me. I don't care what you do after hours." And I said, "But I just will not be involved with it." And so he stayed sober pretty well. He stayed sober through calling in my wedding. Apparently he had one and probably a half a beer after the wedding because he got picked up for drunk walking. And they put his ass in jail, and he got out of jail on Monday morning, and he knew he had to quit drinking because he knew that he couldn't drink anymore. And so he quit all on his own. Just like that, no program, no nothing. He did all on Quaaludes and marijuana, which is another whole different program. But I invited him, quite coincidentally, I invited him to our Wednesday night meeting, and Norm Alfie was talking that night, and he was about our best speaker in those days, and he just loved it. And he came back the following week and raised his hand as a newcomer, and that's 7.5 years ago, and he's been sober all that time, and he's a good, active, regular member of Alcoholics Anonymous in Laguna Beach. And my youngest son will be sober 4 years, the 1st of December, and I couldn't be more proud for him. And Colleen's oldest daughter was a burned-out cocaine freak. Could not get off it no matter how much alcohol she put in her system. Just couldn't get off it at all. And this gorgeous girl, she looks like something out of she looks like a model. She's just absolutely gorgeous. And she just, in her desperation, slashed her wrist and left herself to die on a cold, lonely Marin County beach. And some gal found her and called the ambulance and got her sewed up, and they put her in a recovery house, and she stayed there 1.5 years, and she's sober a little over 4 years, and she's got married to a guy in the program, and she carries a hideous amount of credits up at Dominican College, and she's a straight A student. She's a 4.0 average, if you can believe that, and she's in pre-med, and she's doing well, and she has a chance at a good life. She's 28 years old, and she's going to med school, and she just can't believe it, all because she goes to Alcoholics Anonymous and sponsors people and has a sponsor and does all that sort of stuff. And even one of the kids is a Hare Krishna. They're sober, but a little bizarre, you know. I just don't know about that. I was having lunch in Laguna Beach about 2 or 3 years ago with my best friend Lynn Wilder, and I looked across the street and I heard this clanging going on, and I thought, "Hey, there goes my son-in-law." He said, "Which one is he?" I said, he's the bald guy with the starter rope coming out of his head. You know, just absolutely crazy stuff, you know. But they're all sober, having a great time. I just play that music. I just wish they'd change the lyrics once in a while. It's always the same thing. They opened up a restaurant down in Laguna Beach. The two of them, my daughter and son-in-law, they're always trying to get me to come in and eat their food, you know, and great food, they tell me, great prices, you know, wonderful, they don't bother you. I'm afraid if I go in there and start eating their food, I'll have an overwhelming desire to start chanting, so I just stay out of there. It's just frightening. And Colleen's youngest son. I was saying earlier how high of an kite I was last night when I left the meeting after I talked, and I'm having the same feeling tonight because it's such a wonderful group to talk to. But last December, I forgot to tell you, my wife suffered from the disease of cancer also, and it metastasized the bone, and after several, maybe 7 or 8 surgeries and chemotherapies and Laetrile and radiation you wouldn't believe, and they're talking about a pituitary gland removal surgery, and on and on and on and on. And I'm talking about a bad day when you go to the doctor thinking it's in remission, and oh, I'm sorry, the bone scan came back and you got over here now, and it was just horrible. And she's in the hospital room in last December and not in very good shape, and Michael's on one of his overdoses, and I'm in the emergency room running back and forth, and I don't have to do that anymore. Well, I don't do it anymore because my wife passed away the day after Christmas, and I've just been absolutely devastated this year. I miss her so much because we were so close, and we had such a wonderful life. I'm kind of privileged in a way because I experienced a relationship with a lady that most people don't ever have. And albeit it was short, it was only 10 years or a little less, we had a wonderful life together. And I just miss her so much. And I was thinking the other night, I just would like to have her back. But and as I go running at the beach in the morning some days, I look out to see where I buried her. And I talk to her. And I would like her to be back. Because she was just such a special person. But you know, that's part of the deal, I guess. And I have to learn to adjust to that. And it's been impossible to get through, but I've done it soberly. Most mornings this last year, I get up every morning and I think, what's the use? Why bother? You know, why get up? And I get up because I have to get up, and I get up. I don't lay in bed, and I go out and eat breakfast, which I don't believe in. And the only reason I do that is so I can take my vitamins, which I think are ridiculous also. And I put my running trunks on and go run 4 or 5 miles on the beach, or I swim. I swim most every day, 50 minutes. And there are some days I just ride my stationary bike. I'm taping Miami Vice and LA Law, and I'll go home and watch it tomorrow morning when I'm riding my bike. And that's what I do, because I know it's good for me. And I go to my Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I go to work every day, and I sort of keep it up, and I'll be just fine if I can just get through this situation. I've tried dating, which is just impossible, especially dating program women is just beyond any sort of hope at all. I mean, we went to a baseball game one night, another night I took her to a party. I've only had 2 or 3 dates. And, you know, you take them home and take them to the front door, you know whether to put your arms around and give them a kiss or hold their hand and say the Lord's Prayer. You just don't know what to do. You know, it's just so goofy. But anyway, I've really had a nice time tonight. My time's about up, and I just wish you could have as good a life as I have had. It's been a bad year for me, and I think everyone deserves a bad year here and there. But in the main, I just keep going, and I'm sure I will continue to keep going. And thank you very much.
That was great. I'd like to thank Tom and Ray for speaking again. And now Fred has some secretary's announcements.
I'm Fred. I'm an alcoholic. I'm your secretary along with Tanya. Hi, Tanya. There are 4 meetings a week at this church. There's this meeting, also a Tuesday night participation meeting at 8:30, Sunday night discussion meeting at 8 o'clock, and at 11:30 p.m. tonight, every Friday, there's a discussion meeting in the other room, the little room. We sign court cards at this meeting. Just bring them up to the podium after the meeting. Now, there's an intergroup report tonight. Where's Colleen? Right here.
Hi, my name's Colleen, and I'm an alcoholic. Not much happened this week at this meeting. These are my pleas for the month. Hospital and institution still needs a lot of volunteers, so if you have any free time, please call central office. And also public information, now that school's back in session, they need a lot of people who are free during the daytime. If you have any hours those times, this is speaking to non-alcoholics, explaining the program, exactly what's going on. Again, if you need that information, call central office. They are speaking to like 910 students this month alone, so that we can really, help a lot of people out there. Maybe some way down the road they'll need us. Also, call your attention to the flyers on the piano for the convention. The San Fernando Valley Convention is held in February. It's the first weekend in February. They do want early registration to help some upfront money. And they also wanted me to mention CPC, which is cooperation with the professional community, I think. And this was new for me, so if you're not familiar with this, what this is an organization that helps find an interim sponsor for someone coming out of an institution. And they match you with age, sex, area, and help them get to meetings, just kind of befriend them for a while. And those people also speak to people who treat alcoholics, to pastors, to doctors, psychiatrists probably too, anything else. There was a little more information on the picnic, and I've been asked to see a show of hands if you're interested in having the Summerfest anymore. As I explained last month, it was a bust, and they want to know if there is interest out there. They do own up to some responsibility for that, but they also need the support of the membership to show up. And they wanted me to find out if you are interested in having the Summerfest picnic. It is the major fundraiser for Central Office. So can I see a show of hands? If you're interested in, maybe you'd want to go. Not too hot an idea. Okay. That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. I want to thank the people that helped set the meeting up tonight, and there's a lot of them, and without them this place would be even more havoc-stricken than it is. Vicki, Paula, Jean, Thomas, Tom, those are two different Toms, Barry, Paul, Laura, Terry, John E., Bill Z., John, Liz, Cindy, Roberta, Sam, Bob, and Barbara. Okay. Please do not, if you return, park in the spaces that are provided for the Casa Burger customers, which is right directly out here. We park across the street in the big lot or down in the dark alley down this way. If you do park out here and somebody doesn't remind you, they will tow your car. Your problem. Anyway. All right. Also, listen, when you leave tonight, could we clear the halls? If you want to stand and chat or anything, do it in the little room, because it really makes it hard for the people that clean up and bust their butts to get the stuff out of here. So if you want to talk, either do it outside or in the little room. Thank you. I want to thank Tom and Ray for speaking tonight. I don't think there is a literature report tonight. However, we do have literature. If you want to get some, Kathy will be up here at the end of the meeting by the piano. And there's also H&I can up here if you want to drop some bucks in there. Please, on your way out, throw away your coffee cups and throw away the coffee cups. Throw your ash trays. Throw the contents of your ashtrays in the trash cans, okay? And put your chairs up against the wall. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and I also want to thank Sharon for leading the meeting.
Okay, may I again ask you to please remember that at the church's request, there is no smoking in this room or in the hallways. And also, upon leaving, please do not throw your cigarette butts in the children's play area. Before closing, may I remind you that tonight's meeting was dedicated to the fact that Alcoholics Anonymous is simply one drunk talking to another. I have asked Sherry to read a vision for you and lead us in the Lord's Prayer.
Hi, I'm Sherry, an alcoholic. Hi, Sherry. A vision for you. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. And after a moment's prayer for the alcoholic who's still suffering, will you join me in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Keep coming back, it works. Thank you. The alcoholic still suffers, the kid in jail. I know. Yes, that's
Should I take a chip?
Tanya, do you know what time that meeting is on Sunday here?
Is there a...
It should be
on the directory? Yeah, I'm sure you should. Yeah, I'd see one on the directory.
He read it, but I wasn't listening. Let me see.
Okay, we'll look in the directory if we can't find it.
Let's see, Sunday night at 8.
Oh, great. Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, it's Sunday night at 8 o'clock. How's that room out? All right. We'll be fine to see you.
I thought you should.